out. And then my colleague from the Upstate Better Business Bureau, Kat, will be covering the safety portion of finding your way out of debt. Because certainly we don't want anyone we don't want anyone to be a victim of a scam, but especially if you're trying to work your way out or through debt, you don't want to pay more than you have to do something like that, because it's counterintuitive and it's not helping you out to do so. So these are the two pieces that we are going to cover today. A little bit about our organization, about Parachute. We are a not-for-profit United Way organization that's been around in the Western New York area about 60 years. We service, obviously, Western New York, all of New York State, and about 19 other states, because we can conduct appointments over the phone, via Zoom. We can do some work remotely. So we're able to help out a lot of folks in that way. We have a very dedicated and unified staff who's very knowledgeable about debt options. Our staff are certified financial counselors, so they're well experienced in this area. And again, as I mentioned, we're a United Way affiliate and proudly an A+ member of the Better Business Bureau, and with even some more credentialing than that. Just a quick overview of the services that we offer. Our financial counseling is dedicated toward identifying your debt situation and helping you come up with the best alternatives, providing that information for you to make an informed decision. We have a signature debt management plan that I will go into more detail about in just a bit. In terms of student loan counseling, and this is a terrific offer for folks, we offer student loan counseling for free for up to a 2-hour appointment through a New York State grant to help people make sense of all the options that are out there and what fits their situation best. So if you or you know anyone who could take advantage of that, please let them know about this service. We do credit report reviews. Credit reports can be difficult to decipher sometimes, and you want to be checking those regularly to be sure that there's no errors on them, especially any errors that may be hurting your credit score. So we can do expedited reviews as well as detailed reviews. Financial coaching, I personally find very interesting, and this pertains to the decisions and the behaviors we make around our money habitually, and how those can really impact in an important way our overall financial stability. If you or anybody you know is interested or is thinking of purchasing their first home, we also do pre-purchase counseling, so folks have a really good idea of anything that is entailed in buying a new home. There's a lot. But on the flip side, if anyone is concerned or delinquent on their mortgage payments or their rent payments, or they're concerned about losing their home through a foreclosure, we also have counseling services available as well for those concerns. And obviously financial education workshops where we're out in the community, or we can do them virtually for various audiences, such as what we're doing today for you. We're operating off the premise that a lot of financial experts believe is that financial success is mostly, not entirely, but mostly behaviorally based. So the idea is anyone at minimum can impact their finances, and in this case, impact their debt in a positive way by changing their behaviors around how they handle, how they manage that debt. So we want to start with that message of empowerment first. And really, when we talk about financial empowerment, we're talking about financial stability and sustainability over time. We want to be in a good financial situation now, but we also want to be doing things now that help us build that for ourselves for the future. So 4 key elements of financial stability are what we earn, obviously, our income, but what's also equally important is what we keep of those funds that we earn. And either that's in a savings account or we set it aside somewhere that's safe. And then what we grow from what we save. And that's also, say, in the interest we earn in a savings account. Or we know that there are millions of people who buy bonds, who may be involved in the stock market, mutual funds, saving for retirement. This is what this is all about, this financial stability and security that we want to build over time. And then ultimately what we protect of what we've grown. Well, the problem is debt impedes this. And having excessive debt that when we're on that debt treadmill that we just can't get off of, it gets in the way of us having financial stability now, but also growing it for the future. So we really need a two-pronged approach to financial stability and to paying debt down. And that is our choices, and there's few choices, but it's either increasing our income, getting a side gig of some sort permanently or for a temporary period of time, or reducing our expenses, looking at our budgets again carefully, or both, of course. And also, that's something that Parachute can help with, is helping folks develop a sustainable budget, a realistic budget for them. Because again, what gets in the way of this is if I'm only able to make minimum payments on a credit card or credit cards, minimal payments on my debt. And that's usually about 2 to 4% of the balance is all the credit card companies are asking for. But I'm paying interest rates that now in this country are averaging, and this is an average, but they're averaging about 27%. It's going to take me, honestly, 30 years to pay that debt off. Again, if I'm only able to make minimum payments and I'm paying very high interest rates. And that's why people lots of times are ending up in the paycheck to paycheck living cycle that is not an easy thing to manage. We have a spending problem in the United States. We don't have a savings problem. And I'm not going to go through all these, but this is just indicative of a much larger problem we have nationally. And if you look at US credit card debt surpassing its highest point ever of $1.13 trillion, and where 49% of people who have credit cards are maintaining a balance from month to month. So they're paying those very high interest rates that are coming down on us all. And then this can result in some unhealthy money behaviors. And I won't go through all of these, but there's a lot of anxiety and worry and lack of sleep over our finances. And if we are only making our minimum payments and we're again on that debt treadmill and we can't seem to get off of it. And therefore we have difficulty putting any kind of savings together at all. We've got, again, that excessive debt, and maybe we're having to start to make late payments, or we've been delinquent on payments. We've had to skip some, and then that's impacting our credit score. The number one thing that people still argue about in households and that relates to broken or damaged relationships is money. And just again, if there's an inability to keep ongoing or any positive changes in regard to money at all, debt can impact all of this for us. And just a little bit more on this, fear, avoidance, shame, and embarrassment are the top 4 emotions and reactions to money situations. So that's why when we're finding ourselves struggling with ongoing debt or excessive debt or kind of like a runaway train of debt, we need to do something about it. So there are many solutions and alternatives to managing one's debt. So that's the good news. And one size does not fit all. So you don't want to compare your situation to the person down the street or your Uncle Bob or whoever it may be. Everybody's financial situation and debt situation is different. And it depends on the type of debt, the length of time you've held the debt, the kind, how much it is, and what you're comfortable with in terms of the debt solutions that are out there for us. So let's get into some of the debt solutions. One is kind of commonly known as a power payment method, or I don't know if you've ever heard the term, the debt avalanche. And this is where it's self-administered. You handle it yourself. It's a strategy that you run. And it's basically where you order your debts and you put your debts with the highest interest rates first. And you attack those by paying more than the minimum payment required. And on all your other cards or loans, you pay the minimum or you pay the amount that you have to. And once you then get rid of those higher interest earning ones, you go on to the next highest interest earning and so on until you move down. You apply those payments that you previously were making to the next card and so on. The advantages are you're going to pay off your balances in a shorter period of time, and therefore you're going to pay less interest. So you're going to put less money in the pockets of your creditors and more money in your own pocket. The disadvantage is you're going to need some extra money to pay more than the minimum payment on those cards or on that loan or whatever it may be. And you're going to need to either stop or significantly slow down in using those cards. And that can be a problem for, there are individuals who have to supplement their income with credit cards. And if you find, again, you're in a situation like that, I would really reach out to a not-for-profit consumer credit agencies like ours or others. There are certainly others throughout the country. The closest one to the Western New York area would be in Rochester. But at least get the opinion of someone before you continue on that pattern, on that cycle, because the longer you do it, the more difficult it's going to be to break out of it. Other options, let me just tell you quickly, let me just double back for a second. There's also, so we talked about the debt avalanche, there's also the debt snowball. And what some folks like to do is start with their smallest debt first to gain the momentum. And they're empowered by clearing off a credit card with a low balance and then encouraged to go on, motivated to go on, to continue. That's another option. But from the mathematical perspective, in terms of the money you would save, the power payment method or the debt avalanche would be the best way to go with that. Other options, you might have heard about consolidation loans. This is where you take out an additional unsecured loan, meaning it's not tied into a home or a boat or any kind of collateral that you use to pay off your credit card debt. So a consolidation of the various debts that you have. So the goal is one payment, one convenient monthly payment. And ideally, you would want a consolidation loan at a lower interest rate overall than a lot of your credit cards to be able to pay that off quicker. It might be difficult to obtain in the sense that if your credit's already maxed, if it's impacted your credit score, it might be difficult to get a consolidation loan, but there's certainly no harm in asking. And if you're paying a lower amount each month, it may stretch out the number of payments that you need to make over time. This can happen, especially with some student loan repayments, but worth looking into and doing the inquiry and the research. If you own a home, this is where then it would be not an unsecured loan, but a secured loan backed by the equity or backed by the value of your home. Typically, you can look at taking out home equity loans or home equity line of credits for about 80% of the overall value of your property. And then you can use that loan to pay off all your outstanding credit card debt and kind of get it off your back. The advantages, again, the goal is to lower your monthly debt repayment to get it paid off quicker and easier. The interest paid may be tax deductible. You want to look into that a little bit more, but that is a possibility. The disadvantages are you've just converted unsecured loans or unsecured credit, I should say, if we're talking about credit cards, you've converted them to secured. So then if you don't meet the terms of the home equity loan, because it's linked to your home, there is a risk of losing your home. If you follow the terms of the home equity loan, then that shouldn't be an issue. A little bit more, another debt solution is debt settlement. And the key word here is settle for less than the amount that you owe. So it basically means for the amount that's settled, you're not paying that amount back. So the advantage is that you would be paying less because you wouldn't be paying the full debt obligation, and it should reflect in a shorter time to pay it back. That would be the goal. The disadvantage is that it would be represented as the debt being settled on your credit report, and it can kind of pack a wallop to your credit report, at least for a certain period of time, and we'll go over that in just a moment. And it's also only an option to settle the debt if the debt is delinquent, meaning you have not been paying on it or you have not been able to pay on it. And for the debt amount that's settled, depending on how much it is, there may be tax implications for paying on the amount that's been forgiven or the amount, again, that you're not having to pay back. Then we look at something like bankruptcy. And also we will talk with folks about bankruptcy. We'll do some bankruptcy counseling and then refer people to the appropriate legal entities to help folks out with that if they wish to pursue it. Chapter 7 is the total discharge or liquidation of the debt obligation. So kind of wipes the slate clean. For some folks, that's the best option. For some folks, it's not. So that's why you'd want to talk to somebody about whether this would be a good solution for you. Chapter 13 involves really a repayment plan that's put together for either some of the debt or all of the debt obligations. Chapter 7 is going to stay on a credit report for about 10 years. Chapter 13 is going to stay on a credit report for about 7 years. So the disadvantages of bankruptcy is it could lower your score a significant degree, 150, 200 points or so. And it can take a good 2 to 4 years to start to get the credit report cleaned up or lessen the impact of it to repair the credit score. And again, these will stay on a credit report itself for about 7 to 10 years. Now, other debt solutions. I mentioned earlier a debt management plan. This is our signature offering at Parachute, and again, other not-for-profit consumer credit counseling agencies may offer these as well or do offer these as well. And it's a plan to help you develop a reasonable way to pay down your debt. And by New York State law, it has to be done in 5 years. So this is not something that's going to drag out beyond that. The goal is, and what we do is we put proposals together for folks to see if it's feasible. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, and we have to look at other options. But the goal is reduced interest rates, notably on those credit cards or other unsecured debt like loans. Could also entail late or delinquent utility payments, medical bills. So the goal is one convenient monthly payment made to Parachute each month, and then Parachute disperses money out to the creditors. Late and overdraft fees are eliminated. Collection calls should be eliminated. And the goal is a potential increase or the increase in your credit score over time because you're paying down the debt, you're making regular payments. The disadvantage is that any credit cards put on the accounts, put on a debt management plan, have to be closed. But say, for example, you had 7 credit cards or 4 credit cards and you wanted just a few of them put on the plan, maybe those with the highest interest rates. You can do that. You don't have to put all your cards on. And if you wanted to add more cards later, you could do that, but you've got some control over it. And there's a potential early decrease in the credit score, and I'll explain this the best way that I can. So basically what it is, 30% of our credit score comes from something called our credit usage or our credit utilization. So that is the ratio. So think about your total credit limit available to you. Say you have a $5,000 credit card and you've used about 3,000 of it. Then you've got a smaller ratio here. It's tighter. Actually, it's a larger amount that you've charged in comparison to what you have available. That actually lowers your credit score. But the problem then is if you're closing cards, you're lowering the overall credit available to you, and it's making what you've already charged a little tighter. So that's why sometimes in the short term, the credit score can go down. But then over time, again, regular payment and on-time payment through a debt management plan can raise your score. Now, this is in comparison, and I know Kat, my colleague from the Better Business Bureau, is going to talk about this just a bit more in a moment. But debt settlement companies are typically, you'll see that they have 1-800 numbers, They can, and I'm not saying this is universal, I'm not saying that they all do this, but they may charge high fees. And they may be fees that are difficult to find. They're kind of hidden in the red tape. So if you're looking at any debt settlement companies, beware of the fine print. Debt settling in general, as I said earlier, can be more damaging to your credit score and your credit report. Just the act of settling can do that, not necessarily the settlement company. And there may be companies out there that aren't always transparent with where the money you're giving them is going. Are you paying them for their services, or is that money being applied to your debt? So these are all things just to be mindful of. And again, not for every agency, but there are agencies out there that you want to kind of be cautious in regard to. Also, with credit repair companies, they may, again, I'm not saying positively, but they may have a high service or a high fee for their service, when sometimes it's the case where you can call the creditors yourself. In fact, you can do this. And you can pick up the phone, call your creditors and say, look, I'm having a difficult time right now financially. I'm struggling. Do you have any kind of hardship program available? Just make the inquiry. Because sometimes what does happen is if you do decide to do this, you go on a hardship program, the credit card companies have the option of closing the account. That may or may not be something that you want. So just to research it, ask about it, not necessarily commit to it right away if you don't want to. And sometimes what credit repair companies do is they will go after every negative element. They will challenge every negative element on your credit report. They can do that, but the problem is if those negative items are accurate, nobody can remove them. They're going to stay on your account. So you have to be sure that if you know that there are negative items on your credit score and they're accurate, that no one can erase that and make them go away. And a credit repair company cannot do that. So I'm wrapping up here. Money and financial stability, I would kind of default to that word. Financial stability, it doesn't buy happiness, but it changes an awful lot. It gives you breathing room. It gives you choices. It gives you opportunity that if you have savings tucked away and something comes up, you can handle that situation without it resulting in an emergency. You can think about planning for your retirement. But again, if you're on that debt treadmill and you're living paycheck to paycheck and everything you're making is going to minimum payments where you're not gaining any traction or headway in reducing that debt, then it limits, the savings that you can have, and it limits your freedom and your choices over time. So that's what we want to work for, and that's what we want for you now and what we want for you in the future. Here is our contact information. We are here to help. If you have a moment to take a picture of this screen so that you have our contact information, or just look us up online under Parachute Credit, we're more than happy to help you out. So thank you for your attention. And I'm going to turn things over now to my partner in this presentation. I will stop sharing.
Hi there. Lots of great information. Thank you, Libby.
Oh, sure, of course.
Let's see. Let's just bear with me here while I get my screen up. Okay. All right. Libby, does this look okay on your end? Do you mind just confirming?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, good. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Kat Schmieder, and I am the Communications Director for the Better Business Bureau of Upstate New York. And we are going to switch gears here and talk a little bit about avoiding debt relief scams. So we'll go over an overview of debt-related scams, complaints against debt service companies, and the best practices for how you can protect yourself. All right, so really quick, we're just going to do an overview of BBB of Upstate New York and who we are. The overall Better Business Bureau was founded in 1912 to fight against false advertising. Back then, it was like the Wild West with companies making all sorts of claims about themselves and their products. So, the Better Business Bureau was established to keep that in check and keep companies in line when it comes to keeping their advertising more truthful. Fast forward a couple years, the Better Business Bureau of Upstate New York was established in 1923. Hard to believe, but we just celebrated our 100th anniversary last year. Right now, we have a network of more than 7,500 accredited businesses, and we cover all of upstate New York. So we cover 48 counties in upstate New York, and our service region spans from Buffalo all the way to Albany, everything in between, pretty much everything but New York City. And our physical offices are located in the Amherst area in Buffalo. But again, if you ever need anything, if you're located somewhere else in the service area, please give us a call. We're more than happy to help. All right, so how debt relief scams work. When worried about debt, people are vulnerable to promises of fast solutions. Scammers reach out with unsolicited offers, making unrealistic promises. So I always say this, but if something sounds too good to be true, it most likely is. When it comes to debt, especially if you're dealing with a large amount, a quick fix is really rare to find, and it'll take a little time and effort to clean that up. So I know it's tempting if you receive an offer or a phone call to settle it up quickly, but remember, if it's unrealistic, then it's best to hang up the phone and pursue another option. And before you realize you've been scammed, the individual who has contacted you has access to your personal information and your bank accounts. So if people are giving up information to an unknown source that they aren't familiar with, that they haven't done their research on, that scammer or that person then has access to whatever information they've been able to pull from you. And in this case, typically it's bank account information, which can cause more problems and be very stressful for the individual who's been scammed. All right, so once every couple of months, the Better Business Bureau system publishes studies and results from investigations. This one is from last year, so the information isn't totally current, but it's close. In 2023, we released a study on debt and debt relief, and this is for the BBB system as a whole, not just upstate New York, but here's some information. BBB received 12,700 complaints and negative reviews about debt consolidation, relief, settlement, and credit repair companies. 1,607 scam tracker reports, and I'll explain what our scam tracker is a little bit later. Consumers reported losing 2.4 million to scams. Now, remember, that's just what's reported to us in our scam tracker. That number is actually probably a lot larger. And we received just about 90,000 reports about credit repair and debt credit counseling. So moving over to the right here, you can see the year and the number of complaints, pretty consistent here. And 2020, 3,134, 2021, 3,571. 2022, 3,354. And in June, when the study was published, the number was at 1,794. But again, it was estimated that it would climb over 3,500 like in the previous years. So we know this is a continuing problem and it's a growing problem. So it's something that we really want to help people become more aware of and help them find the tools to protect themselves. And I wanted to share this because this was included in the study as well. It's a map to show you where a lot of these complaints and issues are coming from. You can see the hot spots here. Right now, the majority of it is coming from out west, but as you can see, New York is a hot spot, this little yellow area here. And I know it was even worse with complaints against debt settlement companies in previous years before New York State enacted new laws and started to crack down. But I'll give everybody a second to take a look here before I move on to the next slide. All right, so here are some testimonials that were included in that study for people who had issues with debt relief offers or encountered debt relief scams. So Evan in Nottingham, Maryland told BBB he contacted a debt settlement company to deal with 2 credit cards that held $14,000 in debt. The sales reps were initially friendly and helpful, and they assured Evan that a debt settlement program would wipe out his obligations. Months later, he was dismayed to learn that neither account was settled and both had been closed. One creditor sent the account to collections, he said, and the other was in the process of suing him. Over the last few months, my credit has dropped 300 points. Evan told the BBB. The sales rep and later manager knowingly took advantage of the fact that I was a college student with only a few years of financial knowledge. And this is exactly the kind of person that these shady organizations will prey on. People who are young, maybe not familiar with how debt works, and desperate to, get on the right track and find a solution. Moving on to another testimonial. Betty in Kingston, Ontario told BBB she wanted to check her credit report and found a group online offering to pull it for her. Unaware that the US and Canadian governments grant citizens the right to pull their reports for free, Betty gave her payment information to the scammer. For several weeks, they charged her card $20, ignoring her calls and requests to stop the payments. I am currently off work on stress leave under doctor's orders and do not have any income coming in at the moment, Betty told BBB. I keep calling and requesting it to be canceled, and they just keep telling me that the back office will deal with it. Okay, one important thing to remember here is that you can check your credit report for free. We would recommend using annualcreditreport.com. And if you receive any sort of offer like this, someone asking you to pay for it, you should hang up and know that it is a scam. All right, so here are some red flags to avoid companies with questionable practices. Fees charged before your debts are settled. As of 2010 and an FTC ruling, it is illegal for a company or organization to ask for upfront fees for any debt settlement or relief services. Another thing, pressure to pay fees masquerading as contributions, impersonations of a government program, guarantees to make debt go away or improve a credit score quickly. Again, if something sounds too good to be true, it most likely is. Directives to stop paying debts and communicating with creditors, requirements to provide personal financial information to get additional information, promises about what they can do without actually reviewing the financial situation, offering a debt management plan without budgeting and money management education, and promises that the company can erase bad credit or remove information from your credit reports. It's very unlikely that any information would be removed from your credit report. If you want to increase that credit score and improve your marks, it's just something that takes some time. Know your options. This is something that Libby addressed, so I'll go over it very quickly. But credit counseling, much like Parachute, is a great option. It's the most comprehensive solution, focusing on various resources to help solve financial issues. Debt relief for settlement companies help by renegotiating the debt so that the person doesn't owe as much. These companies reach out to creditors and work with them to lower the balance, interest rates, or fees. Consumers can also do this to avoid the fees a company like this will charge. Again, you just want to be careful. Make sure you're doing your research and finding a trusted company to work with. Debt consolidation companies offer loans to pay off debts all at once. People may get drawn in by promises of a low interest loan, but once they've gone through the application process, they could encounter higher fees. And credit repair. This is when a company would sort through a consumer's credit report looking for errors, or if there are issues, they may contact the credit bureaus and ask for an adjustment. Credit repair companies can't do anything to fix missed payments, which naturally come off reports after 7 years. So who can you trust? Like we said, there are tons of companies out there, scammers, people making claims that they can help you. You really just want to make sure that you find a trustworthy, reputable organization to deal with, whether you're looking at debt relief or credit counseling. This is where we come into play. You should always check with bbb.org before you hire a particular company or decide to work with someone. We have thousands of business profiles and information on different companies. And when you search somebody on bbb.org, you can filter that search to only find accredited businesses. And these are businesses that have been vetted against our 8 standards of trust and have shown to uphold trust in the marketplace and use ethical business practices. And then even if they aren't accredited, regardless if they are or not, take a look at their business profile. So we have reviews and ratings on all sorts of companies. You can read through that and see what other consumers have experienced before you decide to move forward. And this is something that we would recommend doing not only with debt relief, but anytime you're hiring or making a big purchase. All right, protections for consumers. A group of federal laws related to debt relief and credit repair provide some protections for consumers. Taken together, the laws help consumers access information and prevent abusive, high-pressure practices. The Fair Credit Reporting Act. This allows free access to credit reports and requires there be no charge for disputing errors, inaccurate, or incomplete information. Telemarketing sales rule. This requires the disclosure of certain business terms and prohibits misrepresentations and makes unwanted calls illegal. The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. This largely applies to collections, but applies to companies that traffic in multiple types of debt-related work. And the Credit Repair Organizations Act. This prohibits advance fees before services are completed. Some states do have protections of their own, and several require debt negotiation licenses. Connecticut, Delaware, Minnesota, Nevada, Rhode Island, Tennessee, and New York recently introduced a bill requiring licensure for debt settlement companies, and many states do require licenses for debt collection. So here's some general consumer tips for debt and credit management. Again, follow BBB tips for budgeting and debt management. We have a whole page dedicated to debt information on bbb.org, and I did share that study earlier. If you're interested in seeing the full study that we published last year, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to send you a link. I just didn't want to go over it in the presentation because there's a lot of text and it's about 12 pages long, but I'd be more than happy to send it to you. Critically examine any guarantee made. Few, if any, companies can ensure a credit or debt company will agree to negotiate with them or adjust reports. Search online for free information on trusted government and nonprofit sites. Check to see if a business is BBB accredited. Don't be rushed. Unscrupulous businesses and scammers both use high pressure tactics. Again, this is really important. A lot of companies that are trying to take advantage of you or scammers are going to pressure you to make a decision on the spot. Any trustworthy company will give you time to hang up, do some research, and then come back to decide whether or not you want to work with them. Avoid giving away personal banking information until you are 100% certain a company is legitimate. Refuse to work with companies that won't tell you your rights when it comes to debt relief and credit repair. And again, just a general reminder, like Libby said, not all debt collection companies are bad, not all debt relief services are bad. That's not the case at all. But you just want to make sure that you're doing your research and you're finding one that you can trust. Again, use us as a tool, bbb.org. And if you need any help with that, or you just have a question about a particular company, you can contact me privately, and I'd be happy to walk you through, doing some of that research and finding some of that information you're looking for. So here's our BBB resource page. bbb.org/scam studies. That's where you can find the link to the study that I had shared earlier. BBB Scam Tracker. So that's where all of our information comes from regarding debt relief scams. This is a free resource that I encourage you to use. You can report scams or look up scams by specific area for free. All you do is type in an area or zip code, and you can see what scams are happening around you in real time. Again, look up businesses on bbb.org and follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, and LinkedIn right now. And then if you want to take a picture of this, if you want my contact information, it is at the bottom here, Schmieder at upstate New York, bbb.org. So with that, that concludes our presentation. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to open your mic and ask Libby and I.
Or if anyone wants to type anything in the chat, just make sure you set it to everyone so everyone on the meeting can see.
All right, well.
Thank you. We appreciate the feedback. No question. Wonderful presentations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
And thank you, Kathy. We appreciate your kind words. All right, and thank you, Kat, and I hope to see you again soon.
You too. Thanks again, Libby. Okay. This will be posted to our website, and I'll get the link to Libby if anybody is looking for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.